Healthy limits and boundaries. This seems to be a subject that I'm exploring at this moment, at this season in my life. It seems to be, well, it's a subject that I'm learning a lot about right now and finding what my healthy limits and boundaries are and exploring and trying to define those to others and experiencing some reaction in part, some distancing in part. There are several situations where I'm trying to find what my healthy limits and boundaries are. And yeah, I'd just like to explore a little bit about how that's showing up for me and some of the realizations I'm starting to have, which I have today. This is where I'm at today. This can change any moment as I discover more, as I explore more. So what I'm noticing is I'll just take some examples. The use of WhatsApp. I love WhatsApp. I use it a lot. I send voice messages, I send articles, I send videos. And I receive messages a lot. And sometimes it's too much for me. Sometimes the messages are, they feed a certain aspect of me. My need to be the one who knows. My need to fix people. And there's a shadow side to that and there's a light side to that. It comes from, in part, a good place. Good. That's a bit of a bad word. It comes in part from a place of genuine desire to model what it is to grow and expand to people. And in part, it comes from a desire to feel superior to people. And I've started to become very aware of that part of me that wants to be superior to people. And I've noticed that that part of me is getting fed by certain interactions, by certain dynamics, and the energy that I'm putting into feeding that and continuing from that place is detracting from me growing other aspects of myself. For instance, my business. So I've noticed that some of my responses to some people that are genuinely asking for guidance or examples or help with a certain situation, I've noticed my answers have started to get a little bit short, a little bit ratty. And I got curious about that. And I realized that I was allowing a boundary to be overstepped. I hadn't created enough of a boundary, self-defined boundary based on my values of what's important to me, which at the moment, one of the things is growing my business, my coaching business. And I've allowed that boundary to be overstepped, and now there's frustration, there's anger, and there's resentment about the boundary being me allowing the boundary to be overstepped, and that energy being funneled away from my one of my primary goals at the moment. And the tendency, the habit, is to blame the other person. And even if I'm using words that are, no, this is all about me, sometimes the energy of this is your fault might come through. And I've noticed that. And I got curious about the other side of the coin and thought to myself, what's my version of overstepping boundaries? And I think it's perfectly natural. When I look into my experience, and I'm doing it, I notice that I'm doing it. There's several people in my life right now that I am overly offering advice, correcting them, sending long messages beyond the point of there feeling like there's any receptivity. And I got curious about what is it in me that does that. And where I'm at with it in this moment is I think it's perfectly natural. I think children need boundaries. There is a child in me that hasn't really got clearly defined boundaries with other people. And I'm constantly testing where is their boundary. And I will keep testing. I think it's a very natural, it's a probably natural expression of life. Not only human life, but all life is to, well, how far can I take this before there's a bite back, or there's a no, that's not that's too far. And my experience is that people don't know how to draw that, and I don't know how to draw that. I'm discovering how to draw that. And until we know how to draw our own boundaries, how does anybody know where that is and how not to overstep that? And if I haven't defined it, and I'm not clear on what it is, when people overstep it, I don't even know what's going on. I'm just like pissed off, agitated, angry, anxious. So my message to myself in this season of my life is to ask myself, get curious about what is my boundary? How do I define that for myself so that when it's overstepped, I can clearly communicate to anyone who's overstepping it in a way that doesn't cause them pain. Because what they're doing is perfectly natural. It's perfectly natural. So that is my current subject of curiosity and growth. And it's very exciting to have discovered this. I've heard the term healthy limits and boundaries bandied about, but I didn't know what that meant. And I'm just now thinking of times when I have overstepped people's boundaries and they have distanced themselves from me or reacted, and how hurt I felt. How hurt I felt, just like a deep sense of rejection. And I wonder, does it have to be that way? Is it only that way? Is there only is that sense of rejection, and that's mine? I own that. I'm responsible for that sense of rejection, and I get curious about what is the first time I experienced that. Where did I learn that when somebody sets a boundary, that has got something to do with me, and that is a rejection of me and my personhood? Where did I learn that? Lost my thread there a little bit. How can we define our boundaries while still without judging people for being curious and feeling out boundaries? Some interesting considerations. Some interesting considerations for me, for sure. Possibly for all of us. Thank you. Thank you for hearing my heart. Thank you for hearing my process. Like I say, it's ever changing. It's ever growing. That's where I'm at with it today. And I invite a deeper understanding, a deeper consideration, and deeper compassion into my life and the lives of the people around me. Peace.